Welcome back to Energy Bites, where I talk about all things energy for a happier and healthier life. Today we're diving into the topic of identity. Who are you? A simple question, but one that carries layers of meaning. For example, I'm a mother, a daughter, a friend, an entrepreneur, a wife, and many more roles that I play in my life. But is that all? What if I told you that your identity is both your greatest strength and your biggest limitation? I'll take you through what I mean in this video, and make sure you watch until the end because I'll also be sharing my personal experience with you and how you can lose your identity and what some of you might know as the dark night of the soul. So if you want to learn more about why you might feel uncomfortable in your own shoes or discover who you truly are, you're not going to want to miss this. Let's get started. Throughout life, we take on different identities, and I'm not talking about just one or two. Some of you may even identify with tens or hundreds of roles, although some are more dominant than others. We define ourselves mainly through our relationships, as a parent, a sibling, a friend, or a partner. We also identify with groups, cultural heritage, sports clubs, social circles, and even the country or town we live in. These identities give us a sense of belonging, security, and comfort. They shape how we see the world and how the world sees us. Think of identity like a composer creating a symphony. Each role you take on is like an instrument in your orchestra. The strings may represent your family ties, the piano, your career, the brass, your friendships, and the percussion, your passions. Each has its own place, contributing to the grand piece of music that we know as life. Some melodies come to the forefront at different times, while others play softly in the background. And just like a skilled composer, you have the power to blend, shift, and rearrange these identities as your life unfolds. Being part of a group can help us to connect on a deeper level. Think of a charity organization where people come together for a shared purpose, volunteering at a shelter, organizing fundraising events, or helping those in need. These experiences enrich us and deepen our sense of purpose. But what happens when we start believing that we are only that one instrument or that one group? That's where limitations begin to form. So what happens when we hold on too tightly to these identities, when we start to believe we are only a mother, only an entrepreneur, or even only a friend? When we base our self-worth entirely on a role, we become trapped. We fear change, we resist growth, and we may even feel lost when a role shifts or disappears. It's like the composer who refuses to add new instruments to their symphony, keeping the same repetitive tune and playing the same song. It may feel familiar and safe, but it stifles creativity and growth. We must allow new sounds, new experiences, and new energies to enter our lives. The beauty of a symphony lies in its evolution, its movement, and its ability to surprise us. People grow, change, and evolve, and yet we often become fixed to an identity instead of allowing it to transform with us. Take parenting, for example. In the early years, a parent might nurture their child, ensuring that they have their basic needs met, a safe environment, and unconditional love. Parents teach their children how to navigate life in the ways they know best. But as the child grows, so must the parent. Instead of making sure they've eaten their meals or brushed their teeth, the focus now shifts to providing emotional support, offering guidance, and giving them space to make their own discoveries. But what happens when a parent refuses to change and grips too tightly to their former role? Friction arises. The child might feel suffocated, unable to fully develop their independence. The parent, on the other hand, may feel unneeded or left behind. Holding on to outdated identities in any role, whether as a parent, a professional, or a friend, creates tension. But when we embrace the natural flow of evolution, we allow both ourselves and those around us to thrive. Your energy is infinite. When you allow yourself to expand beyond your identities, you open up new possibilities. You become free to explore new experiences, step into new roles, and evolve beyond what you thought was possible. Think of a tree. If it only focused on growing one branch, it would never fully flourish. Instead, it expands in all directions, growing toward the light and adapting with the seasons. When we embrace change, we create space for transformation. Maybe you've always identified as a business professional, but you feel drawn to creative writing. Maybe you've always been an athlete, but you suddenly feel called to explore spirituality. These shifts aren't betrayals of who you are. Instead, they're invitations to discover more of yourself. Sometimes roles will change, evolve, or even come to an end, and that's okay. Letting go of a past identity is not a loss, it's an opportunity for growth. But sometimes, rather than replacing old roles, we can explore new ones in parallel. This can even enhance our current identities. For example, someone who identifies strongly as a business leader might take up a new role as a mentor, which in turn deepens their leadership skills. A parent might start a creative hobby, which helps them to connect with their child in new and meaningful ways. Expanding your identity doesn't mean abandoning who you are. It means enriching who you are. When we welcome new roles and experiences, we become more vibrant, more dynamic, and more in tune with the flow of life. But what if you don't strongly identify with any particular role? Maybe you've always felt like you don't quite fit in, or that you can move easily from one phase of life to another without feeling overly attached. For some, this can feel unsettling, like searching for something but not quite knowing what it is. But for others, this can be incredibly liberating. If you don't define yourself rigidly, you have the freedom to explore life without feeling trapped. You can move fluidly from one experience to the next, embracing new adventures and perspectives. Instead of clinging to an identity, you allow yourself to evolve naturally. Not holding on to roles means you are not bound by external expectations. You can create your own path, and instead of asking, "Where do I belong?" you recognize that you belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Your journey is unique, and that's a gift. For some, the loss of identity is not a choice, but something that can happen suddenly and intensely. This is often called the dark night of the soul. It's a period of deep transformation where everything you thought you were, your beliefs, your attachments, your sense of self, gets stripped away. It can feel extremely painful and traumatic, especially if you're clinging to who you are or who you think you are. You might feel like your world is crumbling. Relationships might fall apart, careers may lose meaning, and the things that once brought you joy might suddenly seem empty. Some examples of what this might look like include losing a job that once defined you, experiencing a breakup that forces you to reassess your sense of self, or going through a spiritual awakening where nothing feels the same anymore. It can feel like free falling, as though the ground beneath you has disappeared. For some, this journey may last months or even years, so perhaps the name "the dark night" isn't quite the words to describe what's happening. In my experience, it can last shorter or longer than this, depending on how attached you are to your identities and roles and how strongly you're clinging on. It's also a time to shed certain views and outlooks you may have acquired over your life. So a kind of learning or unlearning that needs to happen to allow you to become a different and better version of yourself. So this experience, as painful as it is also an awakening. It's the ego dissolving, making way for something greater. It signifies a new beginning, one where your sense of self is no longer tied to external identities, but something much deeper. I want to share with you the story of my own journey through my dark night of the soul, a time that completely shook the foundation of who I thought I was and how I saw the world. To understand the depth of this experience, it's important to know where I was coming from. At the time, I was happily married, had just welcomed my first child into the world, and was taking a break from my career as a finance business partner. Life seemed to be unfolding just as I imagined. But soon after the birth of my first child, as fulfilling as motherhood was, I found myself desperate to return to work. I didn't want to lose my place in the corporate world or miss out on the next challenge. Then, a year later, I fell pregnant again, but this time with twins, and so I made the decision to stay at home to be there for my growing boys. However, every choice comes with its own consequences, and this one triggered what would become my dark night of the soul. I had always identified myself so strongly with my career, with my professional achievements, and the recognition that came with them. So when I stepped away from it all, I felt like I was losing not just a job, but my sense of identity, my confidence, and even my self-worth. In my corporate life, I was respected for my abilities and accomplishments, and I was known for what I could contribute. But at home, while raising my 3 boys and enjoying the privilege of watching them grow, I still felt like I wasn't enough. So with losing the identity I had known, I began searching for new ones, but nothing seemed to fit. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't find fulfillment. I realized I didn't belong anywhere, and even as a mother, I still felt like an outsider. I had always believed that I could make things happen, but life, as I was soon to learn, doesn't always work that way. Life can take you in unexpected directions, and if you cling too tightly to your plans, you'll find that doors will slam in your face. I didn't listen, and sure enough, one door after the other closed on me. I felt more and more alienated, as if I was being pushed out of the world I once knew. The more I resisted the change, the more intense my lessons became. My grip on former roles was so tight, and I refused to let go, even if it meant losing everything. For about 3 years, I lived in anger, resentment, judgment, and pain. I felt completely alone, but still I resisted the lesson. I saw surrender as weakness, and I fought it with every fiber of my being. But then, something finally began to shift. Every single conversation, no matter who it was with, seemed to echo the same message. I needed to forgive. It wasn't just a message from friends and family, but even from strangers on the street. The message was clear and inescapable. Then one day, I had a moment of realization that changed everything. I understood that what was happening wasn't just about me. There was something far deeper, far greater at play. And in that moment, my anger faded, and I realized that there was nothing to forgive. The pain I had felt wasn't just mine. It was shared by others as well, people I had once believed that had caused it. And so I chose to move forward, embracing my newfound understanding. This wasn't just about me. It was about learning one of the most profound lessons of my life. Through the pain, I learned the power of surrender, forgiveness, and the incredible transformation that comes from letting go. And as for the lesson, I'll explain this to you another day, but I know it's an important one to share because I'm sure it will trigger many people out there, as it's a topic that's hugely sensitive and controversial. For me, this was one of the most challenging times of my life, but looking back, I can finally see it as a blessing. It forced me to let go of everything I thought I was, so I could discover who I truly am beyond labels, roles, and expectations. Your journey of self-discovery is ongoing. Identities will come and go, roles will change, but at your core, you are something far greater than any label. The beauty of life is not in holding onto the past, but in allowing yourself to evolve into who you are meant to become. When one door closes, another opens, but only if you have the courage to step through it. When you stop identifying solely with your roles, you free yourself from expectations and open the door to infinite possibilities. You are not just a title, a job, or a relationship. You are a limitless being, constantly growing, changing, and expanding. So embrace the evolution, welcome new experiences, and trust the process. Know that even in the darkest moments, you are never truly lost. You're simply shedding what no longer serves you, making room for something greater. Thank you so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, you are not just a title, a job, or a relationship. You are a limitless being, constantly growing, changing, and evolving. Until next time, take care, keep evolving, and always stay inspired.